Hi friends, today our topic of discussion is the circulatory system. As we all know, the circulatory system is basically of two types, open and closed. The open type is primarily found in the primitive animals, the invertebrates. Which includes the mollusks and the arthropods. Closed type is found in annelids, and the vertebrates. The reason why nature evolved from the open to the closed type of circulatory system was to make circulation faster. And if you make circulation faster, you can have better metabolic activity, you can have better rates. So what exactly is an open system of circulation and how does it work? If you consider this as a primitive heart, from there on, here, the fluid, that is the hemolymph, passes directly into the body cavities, that is the hemocoel. From there on, the nutrients and gases diffuse into the body organs. So in a simplistic figure, this is how from the heart, this is the heart, from where the hemolymph is flowing, and via diffusion through the body cavities, this is the hemocoel to the body cavities. By diffusion, it passes on to the various organs. And then on, again, it is recirculated back into the heart via ostia, holes in the heart called ostia. So that is how circulation occurs in the invertebrates, primarily by diffusion through a membrane. So there are no closed vessels. There is no separate tissue fluid or interstitial fluid. No need for a respiratory pigment. And no capillary system in place. Most importantly, the entire circuit is a slow one. So you will find the metabolic activity of these animals, like the clams, the snails, the mollusks and other invertebrates, is rather less compared to the vertebrates. How is it then in the vertebrates? In the vertebrates, the heart usually gives rise to arteries and veins, which in turn form capillaries before passing on to end organs. So a capillary system is in place and passage is through closed networks of arteries and veins, passing into network of capillaries where the gaseous exchange and the nutrient exchange occurs at the organ levels. So this is how it occurs in vertebrates, in mammals, also in annelids. So, in the closed system too, Mother Nature has undergone evolution from the fish to mammals. So we will see how the heart of the fish is different from that of reptiles, from amphibians to mammals. A fish heart is a two-chambered one. It's a very simplistic form, the fish, where the deoxygenated blood from all over the body goes to the heart. It is pumped to the gills where it gets oxygenated, and from then on the oxygenated blood passes to the rest of the body. So there is just the primitive atrium and the primitive ventricle in the fish. What about amphibians? Amphibians have a three-chambered heart where there are two atria and a ventricle, where there is a small ridge between the separating the right and the left ventricles. So there is free mixing of the oxygenated and deoxygenated blood. But what they do possess is the pulmocutaneous circuit, whereby the deoxygenated blood is circulated through the lungs and the skin when they move up from the water, move out of water to get oxygenated. So there's a ridge separating the ventricles. There are the two atria, so it's a three-chambered heart again in amphibians. Reptiles too have a three-chambered heart. What about mammals? In reptiles, the separation is a little bit more prominent, but still there is free mixing of oxygenated and deoxygenated blood, as the two ventricles, the left and right ventricles, are not separate, as is the case with mammals. Mammals have a four-chambered heart. We will see exactly how a mammal's heart looks like. This is how a mammal's heart looks like. It is four-chambered. This is the left atrium. This is the right atrium. This is the left ventricle. This is the right ventricle. Okay? And there's a separation called the interventricular septum, which separates the right and left part of the heart. This is very important because it is this that makes us different from the others. What happens to the right part of the heart? All the deoxygenated blood from the body, from the SVC, the IVC, is drained into the right part, that is the right atrium. The superior vena cava and the inferior vena cava carry the deoxygenated blood from the lower part of the body and the upper part of the body into the right atrium. The right atrium drains all this blood, the deoxygenated blood, into the right ventricle. The right ventricle in turn passes it to the lungs for oxygenation through the pulmonary artery. The lungs oxygenate this deoxygenated blood and pass it on to the left atrium through the pulmonary veins. From the left atrium, blood passes through to the left ventricle through the mitral valve, and this is your main pumping station of the heart. It pumps blood through the aorta to the rest of the body. So the left ventricle is your pumping station. From then on, all the oxygenated blood will pass on to all the organs, the brain, the kidney, the liver, everywhere, including the heart. And this is how circulation occurs in mammals. What you have to also remember is the heart has valves, important valves here. The right heart has a valve called the tricuspid valve. The left heart has a valve called the mitral valve. And there is also a valve that separates the left ventricle from the aorta. Here there's the aortic valve. And the pulmonary artery, where it arises from the right ventricle, has a pulmonary valve. So the four valves of importance are the tricuspid valve between the right atrium and the right ventricle, the mitral valve between the left atrium and the left ventricle, and pulmonary valve between the right ventricle and the pulmonary artery, the aortic valve between the left ventricle and the aorta. So this is actually a series circulation that occurs in the adult. So this is the kind of circulation you expect for an adult human being. But things were completely different when we were still in the human fetus stage. If you see, the chambers of the heart, they were the same, but the breathing pattern was entirely different. So what about the fetal circulation? Let's learn more about the fetal circulation. Oh well, the fetus, as we know, derive blood from the mother. So the oxygenation is mainly done by the mother. And the umbilical veins and the umbilical arteries play a major role in the fetus. And also, there are certain structures which are different compared to the adult heart. How is it different? Well, the oxygenated blood here comes from the umbilical veins. So umbilical veins carry the oxygenated blood, which is carried via the superior and inferior vena cava. The inferior vena cava connects the umbilical vein. So umbilical vein, the oxygenated blood goes to the right side of the heart. So it reaches the right atrium, and there's a hole between the right atrium and the left atrium called the foramen ovale. The foramen ovale enables the blood to pass from the right to the left side in the fetus. So this oxygenated blood passes to the left side of the heart, and from then on to the various parts of the body. So as we know, this is the valve, the mitral valve, separating the two. So the oxygenated blood flows from the right to the left, passes to the left ventricle, to then on to all parts of the body. So what about the deoxygenated blood then? The deoxygenated blood here from the right ventricle passes through a ductus arteriosus into the aorta, and from then on it passes to the umbilical artery. This is the aorta, passes to the descending aorta, to the umbilical artery, to the mother. So this is the deoxygenated blood, and this is the ductus arteriosus. So ductus arteriosus plays a very important role. It arises from the pulmonary artery, from the RV. From the pulmonary artery, the ductus arteriosus, it connects the pulmonary artery to the aorta via the ductus arteriosus. So the deoxygenated blood is carried from the pulmonary artery into the descending aorta, to the umbilical artery, to the mother, through the placenta. From then on, the umbilical veins carry the oxygenated blood to the inferior vena cava, passing on to the right side of the heart, to the left side, from then on to the left ventricle, which in turn pumps from the right ventricle and the left ventricle. So all the oxygenated blood is then supplied from here to the brain, to the kidneys, to all the major organs, including the lungs as well, as the lungs then are in a collapsed state. So lungs are not the primary oxygenators in the fetus. Instead, it is the placenta, and the placenta and the mother mainly oxygenates your blood via these two things. One is the foramen ovale, which in turn allows easy flow of blood from the right to the left, which means that oxygenated blood can reach all organs of the body, and the ductus arteriosus, which in turn helps to remove the deoxygenated, the dark blood from the body through the umbilical arteries into the placenta to the mother, so that the mother may oxygenate that blood and pass it on to the fetus. So this is how circulation is entirely different in the fetus, where it is basically a parallel circuit going on, where this circuit is entirely different from the other circuit. So thus, fetal circulation is different from the adult circulation. So I hope you enjoyed this session of circulatory system, where we, just to summarize, we discussed the open and the closed circuit of circulation, the open system present in invertebrates, the mollusks and the arthropods, closed system in vertebrates mainly, the open system where the hemolymph easily passes on to the cavities, the hemocoel into and through free diffusion into the organs. There are no closed vessels, no separate tissue fluid, there is no respiratory pigment, no capillary system, and the transport of fluid is slow. Whereas here, there are arteries and veins. And then again, by evolution, we have shown from the fish to amphibians, reptilia, mammals, where the two-chambered heart gradually evolved into the four-chambered heart. The four-chambered heart has been demonstrated, and the adult system of circulation shown here. And then we have shown the fetal circulation, whereby the foramen ovale enables the right-sided deoxygenated blood. The right-sided here, it carries the oxygenated blood which flows from the right to the left, where the right ventricle is your main pumping station, and from then on it flows to the ductus arteriosus and the descending thoracic aorta to the umbilical arteries, where the umbilical arteries carry your deoxygenated blood to flow to the placenta for oxygenation. Thus, this is important how the fetal circulation is different from the adult circulation. The adult circulation too has gradually developed from the fish to the amphibians to reptiles, and this is how the closed system of circulation is in place now by Mother Nature. Thank you so much for your attention. I hope you liked this session. Thank you. We will be back soon with another class on something else. Thank you. Goodbye.